Welcome to Deep Dive Lab, where we break down and dissect cutting-edge scientific research, from advanced biomedical technologies to breakthroughs in AI, materials, science, chemistry, and physics, all told as compelling, easy-to-follow stories.
Honestly, it's great to be here. We've got a really wild one today.
We really do. And, I was just thinking about this. If you've driven past a strip mall lately or listened to literally any fitness podcast, you've definitely seen the ads.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. You can't escape them.
Right. There is this massive cottage industry right now selling this idea that you can just walk into a pop-up clinic, get a quick injection, and just, walk out with the endless energy of a teenager and the bulletproof physique of Captain America.
It's the real-life super soldier serum.
Mm.
Or at least that's the marketing pitch.
Exactly. I'm talking, of course, about testosterone. It has completely taken over the internet. Guys like Joe Rogan talk about it like it's the ultimate life hack.
It is wild how this single molecule has become such a cultural obsession, especially since, it's just a naturally occurring hormone. Our bodies already make it.
Yeah, and here is a strange question for you. Why does a naturally occurring hormone cause such massive controversy?
Well, that is the billion-dollar question.
Because look at the paradox here. On one hand, you have an expert panel recently convened by the FDA, and they're calling testosterone therapy a, quote, multi-billion-dollar preventive care opportunity.
Right. They're treating it like it's this vital cornerstone of aging well.
Yeah. But then you flip the coin, and it is a heavily regulated, controlled substance. I mean, it's been associated with these severe, terrifying health panics for decades. So what is the actual truth about testosterone therapy?
Yeah, the medical field has been fighting over this for almost a century. But scientists have finally run the massive mega trials needed to settle this.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I know we have to go pretty far back to understand why the medical community was so terrified of this hormone to begin with.
We do. We actually have to jump back to the 1930s. That is when testosterone was first synthesized in a lab. And at the time, doctors thought they had literally bottled the fountain of youth.
Really? They were that hyped about it?
Oh, the optimism was completely off the charts. I mean, in 1940, the New England Journal of Medicine called it one of the most potent drugs ever introduced to medicine.
Wow. Okay, so it was a golden age.
Right. But that golden period crashed abruptly, just hit a brick wall in 1941. And it was all because of this brilliant urologist named Charles Huggins.
Okay, what did he do?
So Huggins was studying prostate cancer. And he figured out the specific mechanism of how those tumors actually grow. He found out that prostate cancer cells have these androgen receptors on the outside. You can think of them like tiny locks.
Oh, I see. And testosterone acts as the key.
Exactly. When the testosterone key fits into that receptor lock, it sends a signal telling the cell to multiply.
So doctors essentially thought that prescribing testosterone was like pouring gasoline on a fire. They assumed it would just fuel prostate cancer.
Yes, exactly. Huggins proved that if you drastically lower a patient's testosterone, a process called chemical castration, the tumors shrank.
Wow.
It was huge. He actually won a share of the Nobel Prize for it in 1966. But because of that, the medical community just assumed the opposite must also be true. Giving testosterone must cause cancer.
I mean, I guess logically, if removing it starves the tumor, adding it must feed it. But wait, if he won a Nobel Prize for this, how did doctors ever move past such a terrifying warning?
Well, for decades, they didn't. The hormone basically entered a dark age. Nobody wanted to touch it.
Right, nobody wants to prescribe cancer-causing gasoline.
Exactly. But then we get to the 1980s. There was this urologist at Harvard Medical School, Dr. Abraham Morgentaler. He started noticing this glaring issue. He had patients with genuinely low testosterone who were just miserable.
Like severe fatigue, that kind of thing.
Yes, crushing fatigue, sexual dysfunction.
Yeah.
And he thought, this hormone could actually help them. So he took this enormous professional risk and started carefully treating a small group of his patients.
Oh, wow. And he must have been watching their prostates like a hawk.
Obsessively.
Uh-huh.
But the tumors didn't appear. His patients didn't get cancer.
Wait, really? None of them?
None. And their symptoms improved dramatically. So this forced Morgentaler to do something literally almost no one had done for decades. He went back to the archives. He pulled Huggins's original 1941 research to look at the actual foundation for this huge cancer scare.
Oh, let me guess. The data was flawed.
Flawed is an understatement. He found out that the entire warning, the one that defined urology for an entire generation, was based on observations of a single person.
Wait. One person. An N of one observation.
One single patient.
You've got to be kidding me. An entire medical establishment just abandoned a therapy because of one guy.
Yeah. It just shows how a really powerful narrative, especially when it's attached to a Nobel Prize, can completely bypass normal scientific skepticism.
That is insane. So, okay, the foundation was flawed, the cancer myth is busted. But you mentioned earlier that there was more than one panic.
Yeah, the second scare. So testosterone gets popular again, but then in 2013 and 2014, two major retrospective studies come out, and they linked testosterone therapy to a sudden increase in heart attacks and strokes.
Oh, great. So we trade a cancer scare for a heart attack scare. But wait, retrospective studies, just to clarify for everyone listening, that's when researchers look backward at old medical records, right?
Right. They aren't controlling variables in a lab.
Yeah, so they might see that men on the hormone had more heart attacks, but they wouldn't know if those men were like already super unhealthy or older or had high cholesterol to begin with.
Exactly. That's the fatal flaw. It's correlation, not causation. But the FDA couldn't just ignore it. So in 2015, they slapped this severe cardiovascular warning on all testosterone products.
So how did scientists figure this out? I mean, how do you solve a medical mystery when the evidence keeps flip-flopping between miracle cure and heart attack in a bottle?
This is where the story gets really interesting. Because to settle this, you need a mega trial, a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled monster of a study.
Right, to actually control all those variables.
Yes. And that brings us to the Traverse trial. It was led by Dr. A.M. Linkoff and published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2023.
Okay, so this is recent. How big was this experiment?
Massive. They recruited about 5,200 middle-aged and older men, and the criteria were strict. These men had clinically confirmed low testosterone, meaning their levels were below 300 nanograms per deciliter.
Let's ground that number for a second. 300 nanograms per deciliter. A nanogram is a billionth of a gram. So we are talking about just microscopic traces of this stuff in the blood.
It's minuscule, yeah. The normal range for an adult male is roughly between 350 and 750 nanograms. So these guys were genuinely deficient. But here's the kicker. Every single one of those 5,200 men also had a high risk of cardiovascular disease.
Oh, wow. They intentionally picked the most vulnerable demographic.
Exactly. They treated them to bring their levels back to that normal 350 to 750 range.
So if it causes heart attacks, it's absolutely going to show up in this high-risk group.
Right. And what's fascinating here is nothing bad happened.
Really? No spike in heart attacks?
None. The rate of severe cardiovascular events was virtually identical between the group getting testosterone and the group getting the placebo. Dr. Mohit Khera from Baylor College of Medicine, who's a co-author on this stroller, he pointed out that they picked the highest risk population possible, and it was perfectly safe.
Wow. So those 2013 studies were probably just statistical noise.
Yeah, just confounding variables. Because of the Traverse trial, the FDA actually removed the cardiovascular warning last year.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. The Traverse trial is talking about normal therapeutic doses, getting someone back to a baseline. But the guys at the gym, the pop-up clinics, they aren't aiming for normal. They're taking massive doses.
Oh yeah, completely different ballgame.
Right. I mean, the risks have to be radically different when you do that.
Radically different. Terrifyingly different. We're talking about off-the-chart supraphysiologic doses. When you flood the body with that much anabolic steroid, the dark side comes out. There's an endocrinologist at Imperial College London, Dr. Channa Jayasena, who researches this.
And what does those massive doses do? Because the heart is a muscle, right? Does it just get way too big?
Yes. It leads to cardiomyopathy. The heart muscle, specifically the walls of the left ventricle, they grow unnaturally thick. And as the wall thickens, the actual chamber inside gets smaller. So it holds less blood, the tissue gets stiff, and your heart literally becomes too bulky to pump blood efficiently.
Oh, wow. So you might look like an action hero on the outside, but inside your heart is basically failing to pump oxygen.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. It completely wrecks your endocrine system.
How so?
Think of your brain like a thermostat. It constantly measures testosterone in the blood. If it's low, it turns on the furnace, the testicles, to make more.
Right. Okay.
Taking huge external doses is like dropping a massive industrial space heater right next to the thermostat. The brain senses all this heat, panics, and completely shuts down your natural furnace. Your body just stops producing it entirely. This causes infertility, your testicles shrink, severe erectile dysfunction. And Dr. Jayasena points out it has severe neuropsychiatric effects too, extreme irritability, and even psychosis.
Wait, psychosis just from taking too much?
Yes. The brain is not meant to handle those concentrations.
That is wild. Are there actual numbers on the mortality risk for these gym goers?
Yeah. There was a 2018 study in the Journal of Internal Medicine by Horowitz and colleagues. They tracked 500 Danish men using these high doses of anabolic steroids.
And what happened?
Over 7 years, the mortality rate for those men was 3 times higher than for non-users.
3 times higher.
Yeah, a 300% increase. Dr. Jayasena noted that puts the risk of massive testosterone abuse on par with the mortality risk of using cocaine. Plus, about 30% of the men become dependent. If they try to stop, their internal thermostat is broken, so they just crash into this brutal depression.
Man, that is grim. And it is a completely different reality than what the podcasters are selling.
Very different.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Let's say you go to a clinic and they use a normal therapeutic dose. Does it actually deliver on those miracle promises? Do you get that endless energy and perfect mood?
Well, the Traverse trial actually has a really surprising statistic that grounds the hype.
Oh, what is it?
61% of the participants receiving the actual testosterone dropped out of the treatment.
Wait, 61% quit. But if it's this miracle drug that makes you feel 20 years younger, why would you drop out?
Exactly. Dr. Morgenthaler suspects it's because people come in with these internet-fueled expectations of becoming superhuman.
Right. And applying a gel every day is tedious. If you don't wake up feeling like a superhero, you just quit.
Yep. Clinical trials show the actual benefits are much more modest. The Endocrine Society actually commissioned a massive meta-analysis on this, published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism.
Okay, and what did they find? What are the real benefits?
They found a small but statistically significant improvement in sexual function, satisfaction, and libido.
Which, to be fair, is what a lot of guys are looking for.
True. In fact, the Traverse trial noted a 25% greater increase in sexual activity for the treated men. It also effectively treats anemia and genuinely improves bone density.
Okay, but what about the main selling point? The mental clarity, the motivation, the energy.
The review found no statistically significant difference in energy, mood, or cognition compared to the placebo.
Wait, really? So all these guys claiming they feel like absolute geniuses on testosterone?
No.
It's just a placebo effect.
Pretty much. Proving a chemical mood boost over a placebo with this hormone is incredibly difficult.
That is fascinating, and it reminds me of that hilarious, unexpected detail from the Traverse trial. You just mentioned it improves bone density, right?
Yes.
But the men receiving the hormone actually had more bone fractures than the guys rubbing the placebo gel on their arm.
I know, it sounds completely contradictory.
Wait, so they had a tiny boost of vitality, finally got off the couch to exercise for the first time in years, and immediately sprained an ankle.
That is exactly what the researchers think happened. Their bones might have been a bit denser, but their ligaments and muscles weren't ready for them to suddenly try and sprint on a treadmill.
That is incredible. They felt the placebo effect of being indestructible and just snapped an ankle. But I mean, this all feeds into this huge societal debate happening right now, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The medical field is really split on this. At a recent FDA meeting, you had enthusiasts like FDA Commissioner Marty Marikari arguing for major policy changes. They view testosterone optimization as standard preventive care.
Like, test everyone, even if they don't have severe symptoms.
Yeah, some doctors argue all cis men should just be routinely tested and treated.
But there is pushback against that, right?
Huge pushback. A lot of clinicians look at young men complaining of low energy, and they argue it's not a broken hormone system. It's sleep deprivation, bad diet, chronic stress.
Right. They're saying you don't need a controlled substance. You just need to eat better, lose weight, and sleep 8 hours a night.
Exactly. They're arguing against medicalizing modern burnout.
Which makes sense. But you know what's really striking about this whole debate? While these clinics are heavily targeting, cis men looking for a lifestyle boost, the people who actually urgently rely on this hormone are completely left out of the conversation.
That is such a critical point.
Right. Like trans men utilizing gender-affirming care. For them, this isn't a biohack. It is essential medical care. And then you have postmenopausal women, too.
Yes, emerging data shows targeted therapy can offer massive quality of life benefits for them.
But they are almost entirely ignored in the mainstream podcast debate. The whole conversation is just hijacked by the gym bro aesthetic.
It really is. The cultural lens is so narrow, and it completely distorts how people understand the science.
Okay, let's pull all this together for the listener, because we've covered a lot of ground today. I think there are 3 major takeaways here.
Definitely.
First, testosterone therapy is genuinely safe for your cardiovascular health if you are treating a legitimate deficiency and just bringing your levels back up to normal.
Right. The 2013 panic was overblown.
Exactly. Second, taking those massive off-the-charts lifestyle doses to build muscle is incredibly dangerous. It wrecks your heart, shuts down your natural systems, and mimics the mortality risk of hard drugs like cocaine.
Yeah, 300% increase in mortality is no joke.
No, it's terrifying. And third, the actual benefits of normal doses are way more modest than the internet hype suggests. It helps with sexual function and bone density, but it is not going to magically turn you into a hypermotivated genius.
If we connect all of this to the bigger picture, it just shows how easily human biology gets tangled up with cultural marketing. We desperately want a magic bullet for aging and fatigue, but the science clearly shows us that hormones are tools for balance. They are not biological cheat codes.
Yeah, that is perfectly said. It really makes you wonder, though, if this discovery is just the beginning of understanding how baseline hormone levels dictate our daily reality. What might scientists uncover next about the chemical drivers of the human experience?
It's a fascinating frontier.
It really is. Well, thank you for joining us in the Deep Dive Lab. If you loved uncovering this scientific mystery with us, be sure to follow and subscribe for more science stories. See you next time.